On the 13th of February, 2017, two teenage girls went for a walk on a trail bridge in the small town of Delphi, Indiana. They never came home. What followed was one of the most publicly followed murder investigations in American history. A case where the victims themselves had captured their killer on video, where the entire country knew what he looked like and what his voice sounded like, and yet it still took 6 years to make an arrest. This is the story of the Delphi Murders. Chapter 1: Down the Hill Guys. Abigail Williams was 13 years old. Liberty German was 14. On a Monday afternoon during their school's winter break, they were dropped off at the Monon High Bridge trail near Delphi, a popular hiking spot that crosses the Deer Creek River on a rusted old railroad bridge. Liberty took photos and a short video on her phone. At some point during their walk, they encountered a man on the trail. When the girls did not return home that evening, their families reported them missing. The following morning, on the 14th of February, their bodies were found in a wooded area near the creek, a short distance from the bridge. They had been murdered. The details of exactly how they were killed have not been fully disclosed by investigators, who have maintained that certain aspects of the crime scene are held back to help identify the genuine perpetrator. What is known is that the scene showed considerable deliberateness, and that the killer had apparently remained with the bodies for a significant period of time. When investigators examined Liberty German's phone, they found something extraordinary. She had been recording video on the trail, apparently sensing that something was wrong. The footage showed a man walking toward them on the bridge, hands in his pockets, wearing a blue jacket and a cap. And there was audio, the man's voice low and flat, issuing a 2-word command: down the hill. The Indiana State Police released that audio clip and a still image from the video to the public. Within days, the case was international news. Everyone had seen the grainy image. Everyone had heard the voice. The investigation was unlike almost any other. The public had direct access to more information about the suspect's appearance than in almost any comparable case. And still, for years, nobody was found. Chapter 2: 6 Years of Looking. The Delphi investigation was run primarily by the Indiana State Police and the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, with FBI involvement. It became, by the assessment of multiple law enforcement veterans who commented publicly on the case, one of the most complicated small-town murder investigations ever conducted. The challenges were real. The killer had left the scene without being identified despite walking past the victims in daylight. The trail had been used by multiple people that day. Physical evidence at the scene needed to be carefully attributed. And the sheer volume of tips that poured in from the public, eventually over 40,000, created its own investigative burden. Investigators released the composite sketch of the suspect twice. The first sketch, released in 2017, showed a fairly young-looking man. The second sketch, released in 2019 along with an update to the audio clip, showed an older-looking man. Investigators explained that the revised sketch better reflected the evidence they had developed over 2 years of investigation. The two sketches looked noticeably different, which generated public confusion and, among more suspicious observers, questions about whether the investigation was on track. There were tips naming hundreds of individuals. At various points, multiple men were publicly named on social media by amateur investigators, some having their lives severely disrupted before being cleared. One man who bore a superficial resemblance to the sketch moved away from the Delphi area after harassment. The case became a focal point for true crime communities online, particularly on Reddit, where amateur investigators analyzed every detail of the released footage obsessively. If you're new here and you want to follow along as we cover cases like this one, please subscribe and hit the bell. We'd love to have you as part of the community. Chapter 3: The Man Across the Creek. In October of 2022, 5 years and 8 months after the murders, the Indiana State Police announced the arrest of a 50-year-old man named Richard Allen. Allen lived in Delphi. He had, in the years since the murders, been employed at a CVS pharmacy in the town. He had, by multiple accounts, been someone who was known locally, who had attended community events related to the case, and who had spoken to investigators at some point during the investigation, like many residents had. The arrest shocked many people who had followed the case, not because Allen was an implausible suspect, but because of how close to home he was, literally. He was a local man, unremarkable in appearance, living and working in the same small community where the murders had happened. For all 5.5 years, the case had been unsolved. His name had apparently been mentioned in the original wave of tips, but had not led anywhere immediately. Charging documents and evidence disclosures in the months following the arrest revealed significant details. Allen had been placed at the trail on the afternoon of the 13th of February, 2017. Unspent ammunition found at the crime scene was allegedly linked to a weapon owned by Allen. And critically, biological evidence from the scene was reportedly matched to him through DNA testing. The case then became extraordinarily complicated in a different direction. Allen was held in a high-security prison unit in Michigan for a period due to safety concerns about housing him locally. Reports emerged that, while in pretrial detention, he had made statements to other inmates about the murders. His legal team filed extensive motions, including at one point a dramatic argument that their client had been framed as part of an elaborate conspiracy involving a neo-pagan group and an element of staged crime scene details. This claim was widely met with skepticism and was subsequently walked back. Multiple defense attorneys were involved over the following months, and the legal proceedings became tortuous. Chapter 4: The Trial. In October of 2024, Richard Allen went to trial in Carroll County, Indiana. The trial itself was intense and closely watched. Prosecutors presented what they described as a comprehensive case. Allen's presence at the trail confirmed physical evidence linking him to the scene and the connection between the crime scene ammunition and his firearm. The defense challenged the evidence and the handling of the investigation, arguing there were irregularities. The jury deliberated for a relatively short period before returning guilty verdicts on 2 counts of murder. Richard Allen was convicted of the killings of Abigail Williams and Libby German. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His defense team indicated they would appeal. As of now, the conviction stands while the appeal process proceeds. The Delphi case also raised significant questions about the role of public participation in modern murder investigations. The case demonstrated both the potential and the danger of mass public involvement. The volume of tips and the engagement of the true crime community kept pressure on investigators and may have contributed leads. But the harassment of innocent people who were wrongly named online caused real harm and represented a dark side of that same phenomenon. Libby German's act of pressing record on her phone in what appeared to have been her final moments gave investigators and the world a face and a voice. That those 2 things existed for over 6 years without producing an arrest is a testament to the difficulty of evidence-based investigation, even when the public face of the case seems straightforward. The murder of Abigail Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana in 2017 was captured in part on video by one of the victims themselves. Yet despite the killer's image and voice being released to the public, it took over 5 years to arrest a local man named Richard Allen. who was convicted at trial in 2024 and sentenced to life in prison. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch more crime videos like this one by clicking on screen.